Hey guys, welcome to Human Body Systems Lab Practical 2. In this video, I will take you through all the terminology you got to know for the skeletal system, the muscular system, and for the nervous system. So let's start with the skeletal system. And so we'll start with the skull here and also this skull here with the calvarium taken off. So your first terms: frontal bone, parietal bone, occipital bone, temporal bone. Again, frontal bone, parietal bone, occipital bone, and temporal bone. We also have the sphenoid bone, and the sphenoid is this dark orange or red right in there. And with the calvarium taken off, the sphenoid bone is all this right here. This is also the sphenoid bone. You also have the ethmoid bone. The ethmoid bone is this yellow right here. See that yellow there? You can also see the ethmoid bone through the nasal cavity. There's the yellow ethmoid bone. And with this view, with the calvarium taken off, the ethmoid bone is right here. Here it's just peeking out right here, ethmoid bone. Okay, good. We also have the two nasal bones, these two white nasal bones. We have the maxilla, which is the upper jaw, maxilla. We also have the lacrimal bones, which are those two orange bones. Those are the lacrimal bones. Nasal bones, maxilla, lacrimal bones. And we also have the zygomatic bone. That's this yellow cheekbone, zygomatic bone. Zygomatic bone. And we have a few cavities. Here are your two orbits, orbits and nasal cavity. Orbits and nasal cavity. Okay, so that's all you got to know for the skull. Here we got the sternum and some ribs. This whole thing is called the sternum. All this is the sternum, but there are three parts: manubrium, body, this little triangle, xiphoid process. Manubrium, body, and xiphoid process. We also have the ribs. The ribs, this is some of the rib, and it would look like this, just like that. So you have the bony part and cartilaginous part here. So you also have to know that ribs 1 through 7 are true. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are true because they each have their own piece of cartilage that's attached to the sternum and to the vertebral column posteriorly. 1 through 7 are true. You also have 8, 9, and 10. These are shared by a common branch of cartilage, so these are your false ribs, 8, 9, and 10. And then you have actually two more ribs that don't attach to the sternum at all, but they do attach to the vertebral column. And those two are ribs 11 and 12, so we just call those floating. So you have true, false, and then the two floating ones that you won't see here because they don't attach to the sternum at all. Those are called your floating ribs, 11 and 12. 1 through 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 and 12. Okay, and of course this is a floating. This would just be a disarticulated rib. So I wouldn't expect you to know what number rib this is, just that this is a rib. But obviously, if you have this model here, you would be expected to know that, for example, this is rib number 5. Okay, very good. We also have the vertebral column. Here's superior, and as you work your way down, here are your two hip bones. So the vertebral column has 4 curves, and this person right now is facing this way, so this way would be anterior, and over here would be posterior. See, look at the rib, look at the hip bone like that. So first curve is right here. This is the neck. This is your cervical curve right here, cervical. And then you have your thoracic curve, cervical curve. Number 2, thoracic. Number 3 is your lumbar curve. And then the 4th curve would be your sacral curve. So you have cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and then finally you have your sacral curve. As long as we're down here, these are your hip bones. So you can say pelvis. Here's 1 and here's 2. So you can say pelvis. This here is the sacrum. This is the sacrum right here. And this here is the coccyx. If I turn this around, hip bone. All this is the sacrum, and then these 4 fused bones here is the coccyx. Okay, very good. This here is the clavicle. This is 1 clavicle bone. Clavicle. Scapula. This is the scapula. And again, hip bone, or you can say pelvis. Don't get them confused. Hip bone. And with the obturator foramen. And this is the scapula. This is the scapula. And if you wanted to see the sacrum and coccyx together, that's what it looks like. 5 fused bones, sacrum, 4 fused bones, the coccyx. Okay, very nice. So this was your clavicle, scapula, and pelvis. We also have the arm bones. There we go. So you got larger bones, and you got smaller bones. Look at how much larger these are in size compared to these. Well, these are your arm bones, and these are your leg bones. So the superior, the more proximal arm bone, the most proximal arm bone is your humerus. Check out the head there. This is the humerus. So this bone is the humerus. And we also have the ulna. And then we have the radius. How can I keep these all straight? Well, the ulna has the letter U. The ulna has the letter U. Whereas the radius, you see you got a circle with a diameter and half of that is the radius. That's how I kind of keep these two straight. When you're looking at your arm, your ulna would be closer to you and your radius will be lateral. So it'll look like that. So again, these 3, this is the humerus, this is the ulna, this is your radius. For leg bones, the most proximal one is the biggest bone in the body. This is the femur. This is the femur. Biggest bone, a femur. And then we have the 2 lower leg bones. This is your tibia. Big, like Titanic T, tibia. and the fibula, the smaller one, the little one, like the little eye, a little fib. So this is your tibia, and this is your fibula. Okay, very good. We got the hand. Careful now, because it looks like your fingers go all the way to right here. Actually, that's not true. Your fingers stop right here. So these are your phalanges. One is called a phalanx. These are your phalanges, metacarpals, and these are your carpals. Again, your wrist bones, carpals, metacarpals, phalanges. And your foot, with your foot, it's almost the same kind of terms. All your ankle bones, these are your tarsals, and these are your metatarsals, and these, again, from here to here, are your phalanges, which would be the same word. So remember, these are carpals, and these are tarsals. So you drive a car, but you walk on tar. Carpals, metacarpals, tarsals, and metatarsals. And we also have the knee bone. This is the patella. This is the patella, the knee bone, the patella. That concludes everything for your for bones. All right, now on to muscle. So we have our frontalis, if you remember. Frontalis, like frontal bone, frontalis. This is your frontalis right here. And we also have the orbicularis oculi, orbicularis oculi. And we have our orbicularis oris, orbicularis oris. Zygomaticus major, zygomaticus major, right here. Zygomaticus major makes you smile when this contracts, makes the corner of the cheek go up, so you smile. And you have your depressor anguli oris. Depressor anguli oris depresses the mouth, makes you frown. You have your sternocleidomastoid, sternocleidomastoid. And then we have the pectoralis major. Pectoralis major is right here. And we have the pectoralis minor. Pectoralis major, pectoralis minor. We have our external obliques right here. External oblique or external abdominal oblique. You can even see it going behind the sheath here. You can see the ridges right here. So this is your external oblique, like hands in your pockets, the way you put your hands in your pockets. But going in the other direction are your internal obliques. So external oblique right here, not this muscle here, but just from right here, external oblique, and your internal obliques are right here. Your rectus abdominis, straight up and down, rectus abdominis, that makes your 8-pack, rectus abdominis. And then with the leg, now on the leg, here, this is the left leg. You got the left leg here. So with the leg, we have our quadriceps. These 4 muscles right here, 1, 2, 3. This is just above the knee now. And 4 here, behind here. These are your quadriceps. These muscles right here extend the knee. When these contract, it extends the knee. Those are your quadriceps. You also have your sartorius. Looks like a kind of in the shape of an S. Sartorius, right here. And we also have our gastrocnemius. So here's the knee here. We'll turn the leg around. Here's the back of the leg. So all this is your gastrocnemius. This is the gastrocnemius. And you see here's the heel right here. So this is your gastrocnemius. And you also have your tibialis anterior. So just like we just learned, this was the tibia. This bone, the big one, titanic tibia. Right next to it is your tibialis anterior. And we also have, way up at the top, gluteus maximus. So here's the gluteus maximus. And just like we had muscles to extend the knee, these are your quadriceps. We have these 3 muscles on the back, 1, 2, and 3, kind of hiding behind there. These ones, posterior on the back here, these are your hamstrings. So these muscles flex the knee, and your quadriceps extend the knee. Okay, very good. Let's get this little model here, and let's turn this guy around, and let's study the back muscles here. All right, so your trapezius, all of this huge diamond right here is your trapezius. It takes up quite a bit of the back. You see that? That's your massage muscle. You know, when someone gives you a massage, oh, that feels so good. That's your trapezius. But it also goes all the way, like 3/4 of the way down your back, too. You see that? That's your trapezius. Your latissimus dorsi really cover almost all the rest of your back. So all this is your latissimus dorsi. I mean, between these 2 muscles, they cover like 90% of the superficial muscles of the back. So this is your trapezius, and all this right here is your latissimus dorsi. And also we have the serratus anterior. This here, let me get that other model, is your serratus anterior. Now remember we talked that these were your external obliques, like this. Well, your serratus anterior, once you put these 2 muscles together, it kind of looks serrated, like a knife. Well, these basically it's under your armpit, all the way kind of down to your hip. That's your serratus anterior. You put those 2 muscles together, and it looks serrated. Serratus anterior, and your external oblique is right here. A little bit more on the back. Let's take a look at those 2 muscles. This was your trapezius, latissimus dorsi. But then you have a few of them in here that we should talk about. These 2 here are your teres minor and teres major. Teres minor and teres major. And this is your infraspinatus. So infraspinatus, teres minor, teres major. Let's take a look at a different model here. Here's the arm here. This is the posterior view. Here's the anterior view. All right. So again, these 2 muscles, here's your teres major, teres minor, and your infraspinatus. which just means below the spine. Here's the spine of the scapula. Infra, meaning below, so this is your infraspinatus. Teres minor and teres major. And if we flip this on the other side, this is your subscapularis. Subscapularis. So subscapularis, teres major, teres minor, infraspinatus. The shoulder muscle, this is your deltoid. This is your deltoid right here. Deltoid. Deltoid. Now for some more of these arm muscles here. Perfectly anterior, completely anterior. See, like here's the shoulder. So your arm's going to be, when you're in anatomical position, someone's looking at you in anatomical position. You'll see their biceps brachii here. Biceps brachii. And this is your brachialis, right underneath. Biceps brachii and brachialis. Let me turn it like this so you can kind of see more of it. Biceps brachii and your brachialis is right here. All of these muscles here, these are your extensor muscles. These extend the wrist. When these contract, they extend the wrist. These guys here, when these contract, when these flex, when these contract, they flex the wrist. Flexors, extensors. This is your biceps brachii, brachialis. The muscle, all these three heads here, these are your triceps brachii. Make sure to say the word brachii, because some people will say, oh, biceps and triceps. Biceps brachii, triceps brachii. Okay? All right. I believe that is all for the muscle. That is all for the muscle. All right, so let's put that away and let's look at the nervous. All right. All right, here we go. So here is a model of a neuron. And this is the cell body. Here's the cell body. Imagine this thing being attached to this end here, so it got cut off. So here's the cell body. Here's the nucleus. Here's the axon hillock. No, you might not have to know that one. Okay, so nucleus, cell body is here, and the cell body has these projections coming off of it. Not these orange-looking ones, but these gray ones. These are your dendrites. Dendrite, 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 dendrite. These are actually terminal buttons, the terminal endings, of other neurons that are going to communicate to this cell. So we have the cell body. All this is basically the cell body. The nucleus, your dendrites, dendrite, 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 and then the axon. And that attaches up here, axon, all the way down. Axon. Okay, very good. Last model is the brain. This is the last thing that we're going to work on. So if you take a look at this entire outer portion, this is called the cerebrum. This is the cerebrum. And you can see cross section, you can see the cerebrum here. This would be the right cerebral hemisphere. This is the right cerebral hemisphere. Just this outside stuff here. So cerebrum, and just like we looked at with the bones, the frontal bone and the frontalis, the muscle, well, this is the frontal lobe. Except now we're not saying bone, we're saying lobe. So Here is, this person is now would be facing this way, so this would be superior, this would be inferior. This is the frontal lobe. This is the parietal lobe. This is the occipital lobe, and this is the temporal lobe. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. And this whole brown structure here, this is the cerebellum. Keep it straight, keep that word straight, because this is the cerebrum, but this is the cerebellum. Inside the cerebellum, you have a little bit of white matter. This is called your arbor vitae. So this is the arbor vitae, the tree of life, arbor vitae, which you'll find in the cerebellum. And again, this outer shell here is your cerebrum. The cerebrum is actually made out of gray matter, and the inside you'll find white matter, and the cerebellum as well. This is the corpus callosum right here. This connects the left and right hemispheres. When this thing is fully developed, a child can actually draw a circle, a full circle, when this thing is fully developed. Corpus callosum. And inside of this septum pellucidum here, inside of here is a cavity. So inside of here is the lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle. It's a cavity filled with cerebrospinal fluid. And you have your thalamus. You see this kind of like this little nipple right here, and this kind of all around in this circle. This is the thalamus. And your hypothalamus is right here. This little trapezoid area. So here is the thalamus, and below is the hypothalamus. See that? Thalamus and the hypothalamus. The midbrain is right in this area here. The midbrain consists of your superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, the midbrain tegmentum, and your cerebral peduncles. The midbrain, in general, you can just say, here is the midbrain right here. It's like the next, would be like the next area after the thalamus. Here's the thalamus. The next, if we were, work our way down, here is the midbrain. The pons is this big ball right here. See that? This is the pons. Here's the pons. And below that is your medulla oblongata. So here's your medulla oblongata. The fourth ventricle is, so you see you have your cerebral spinal fluid here, and it kind of runs down like this. The fourth ventricle would be like a little pocket that sort of indents into the cerebellum. So the fourth ventricle, we'll just call it right here, fourth ventricle. You can't really see it on this side either. Fourth ventricle would be right, it's a little pocket right in that you'll find. This kind of like indents into the cerebellum. Fourth ventricle. The spinal cord is here's the beginning of the spinal cord right here. But the brainstem would be all of this. But the spinal cord would be, here's the beginning of the spinal cord as it goes all the way down the body. Your brainstem consists of the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the midbrain, right here. So here is the brainstem. Kind of can be a little confusing because, the stem well, no, this down here is the spinal cord, but the brain stem is right here. Medulla oblongata, pons, and the midbrain right here. And there's another term called the diencephalon. The diencephalon consists of the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Thalamus and hypothalamus together make the diencephalon. These are regions now, like the brain stem is a region. The diencephalon is you could call another region. Okay, almost done. If we turn the brain like this, now this person would be, looking straight at the camera. But then we turn like this, we have the olfactory bulb. Here's the olfactory bulb for smelling. And we turn it like this. Here is I gotta find it here. Here, this little point right here is the optic chiasma. Chiasma coming from the Greek or the Latin X, and the reason why is if we put this all together, you can actually see the shape of an X. So you have your optic tract, an optic nerve. It makes an X, you see? So the point in the middle would be your optic chiasma. Optic chiasma. And then you won't see it here, but hanging off of the hypothalamus right here, hanging off the hypothalamus, you'll have a little ball. You don't see it here on the model, but that little ball is a gland, and it's called the pituitary gland. It secretes 9 different hormones. It's the Mac Daddy of hormones. So that's called the pituitary gland. And then finally, just 2 more terms, 2 simple terms. You have these small little indentations. The indentations are called sulci. One is called a sulcus. Any of these little grooves. Not the major fissure, but just these guys here. This would be a sulcus. And if you want to say plural, these are sulci. So one is sulcus, and one of these bumps would be a gyrus. So gyrus, or multiple is a gyri. Gyrus, and sulcus. All right, guys, thank you very much for paying attention. That was a lot. That concludes all the terminology for the muscle, for bone, and for nervous. Thank you very much. Study well, and we'll see you next time.